Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick unboxing and full review of the Ventaron Magnito mouse. Now, this is presently in a Kickstarter phase. It's $29 US, and what Ventaron has set out to do is make an affordable Bluetooth 5.0 mouse that is really designed to be paired with tablets, specifically the iPad, because it is magnetic. So, I think it's a novel idea. Ventaron sent it over for review. Let's get it out of the package. As I've already told all of you, Bluetooth 5.0, it can control up to 2 devices. That means you can pair it to 2 different devices, whether we're talking about a laptop or a tablet or even a smartphone. It's really up to you what you want to do with it. The beauty of this device, again, is its cost, because it is so value-oriented here at that $29 price, and practicality when it comes to being used with, again, devices that it actually can magnetically attach to. So if you're one of those people that finds you often will lose a mouse if it doesn't have, a proper place to actually be mated with the device you plan on using it full time, this may very well be ideal for you. Now, Ventaron also included one of their magnetic pads, which is also something you can get through their Kickstarter. This is ideal for anyone who has a device that does not actually have a metal surface for this to pair with. So in that case, you essentially have this little, I believe it's faux leather swatch that just has 3M adhesive. Pop it onto your device and you're in business. And that will be where the Ventaron mouse, the Magnito mouse, will be able to stick, because this area is the surface. Now, this is a pre-production model, so even though it had retail packaging, I wouldn't expect it necessarily to match what you will eventually see. And now you can see that I've thrown the Magnito pad on there, the magnetic pad, and it is so tight that it actually popped off the battery cover, which isn't a bad thing, because we'll just skip right to that, which is that you're going to need AA batteries to power, or excuse me, AAA batteries to power this experience. That will give you, per Ventaron, a total of, I believe it was 8 hours of continuous use, 8 to 10 months in a power saving mode, which is definitely, I think, pretty solid. But again, what I'm telling you is that you will get 8 hours a day over an 8 to 10 month period. Sorry if that wasn't clear. Didn't want anyone to think you're only going to get 8 hours of battery life out of this mouse. The optical sensor on here has 3 different DPI settings. We've got 800, 1200, and 2400, so it should pretty much accommodate, I think, just about everyone in terms of practical use. But let's get, since we now see how strong that magnetic seal is, and it is really strong, which it needs to be if it's going to stay on your device of choice, your left and right click seem fairly well put together, I would say. Your scroll wheel, you have another button here on the side, your optical sensor that I just mentioned with the 3 stages there, Bluetooth 1 and Bluetooth 2, because that's the device you're going to pair with. As I mentioned earlier, it will pair with 2 different Bluetooth devices. So just a long press of that will, I assume, begin the pairing process, and then ultimately you, of course, will be connected with whatever machine you are continuing that pairing process on the other end. This switch right here, you can see, essentially just lets you switch between mouse mode on the left, and then off in the center, and then camera mode on the far right. Now, part of what I mentioned was that this is a multi-function device. It can act as a remote control, very easily pocketable, but again, it's meant to stick to your device, right? So if you're wondering how you would use it as such, this button, I believe, is what you would use in the presentation mode, but it would also double as the ability to control the camera shutter on your smartphone, which is something that I will also be demonstrating through the course of my review. So fairly dynamic, again, at under £1/4 at $29 US. The ability to control 2 devices, 2 batteries will give you 8 to 10 months in a power saving mode. It seems like an easy choice if, again, you're looking for something magnetic in order to make your life a little bit easier. So now that I've unboxed and introduced all of you to the Ventaron Magnito mouse, let's talk about how it performs. You already know it requires 2 AAA batteries, right here in the battery bay. It will give up to 8 to 10 months of battery life while in power saver mode. That's Ventaron's quote, with an average of 8 hours of use daily. Now, I haven't had this mouse for even a month, so for me to tell you that the battery life is going to achieve 8 to 10, I can't tell you that. What I can tell you is I haven't had any battery life problems with these two AA batteries in the course of that time. But now let's talk about the actual performance. The magnetic system works. You will need to find the sweet spot on your device of choice. I'll demonstrate that in a moment. But once you get this paired up, like I have right now with my Tab S8 Plus, part of what's unique is not just using it as a mouse, which of course you can do. Just switch it into mouse mode, and you can see I have a mouse. I can start and stop watching content. I can use it for anything you would use a pointing device for. But what is unique is, again, that secondary function, the camera mode. When you switch over to that, not only does it give you the ability to control over the Bluetooth 5.0 connection, the shutter of the device you're using. So in this case, Tab S8 Ultra, it would be the camera system there. If it was my Fold, it would be, of course, the camera system there. But then also this camera mode that you go into essentially is anything the Magnito mouse can handle that isn't pointing related. So in this case, media playback. Let's say I want to watch a movie. In this case, it's not a movie. It's an LG OLED 4K sample for playback purposes. But just by hitting that multifunction button on the side there, we can control volume levels, which basically you just use the scroll wheel to increase and decrease. And then you can also control playback using the mouse. So if I go ahead and press in on that wheel, you can see it's now playing. And then I'm still controlling volume levels simultaneously. So you can see I just lowered it using the mouse. And I've paused it. So it's not groundbreaking, but certainly a nice additional element, another layer beyond the basic mouse capability. And the same applies when we get into using this specifically with the camera system, as I mentioned. So if I go ahead and open up the camera, and you can see several things here, I can now hit this button to trigger the shutter. And you can see I just did. And there is the image. So really simple. Again, that multifunction button becoming a camera shutter button on your Bluetooth device, as long as that Bluetooth device has a camera system to leverage. Now, this also can be used for presentations. Remember, 3 meters of range, that's over 30 feet. So if you're using it for media playback, like I just did at a distance, let's say you're streaming something to a larger display, whatever it may be, you can use this not only to control that content, but then also essentially to control slideshow, whatever it may be, out of whatever software inside Windows or Mac that you plan, or even mobile platforms that you plan on using. So a nice extra layer of connectivity. So now let's look at how the Ventaron Magnito mouse works with the Z Fold 2. So I've got my Fold here. I'm going to go ahead and just jump into Bluetooth settings. And once you've held that Bluetooth button down right there above the power switch, it should populate in your list of devices. And you can see right there, Bluetooth mouse 5.0. It's asking me if I want to pair. I'm saying yes. And we are now connected. So as long as you're in the mouse mode, you're connected, we now have a physical mouse. And you can see that right there on screen, works seamlessly. I want to go to the home screen, I can do that. I want to open this up and, maybe, again, use the ability to control the camera. I can open up the camera, and I have this whole slideshow from testing previously. So again, really easy to do. You're just going to slide that over, and now you have control of the camera. So I'm just taking pictures now as I talk live here on cam, and as many times as I hit the shutter button, it's just going to keep shooting. So it's really a matter of what you're looking for. I think it's nice that Ventaron has given us more capability than a standard Bluetooth mouse. I think, when you're trying to make something affordable that will also be popular, you've got to come up with some new angles. And I think the magnetic idea is a good one. I do think that they can refine it more. Now, I don't know what the final product will be. This is a pre-production unit, and it isn't perfect, but I think it's a very good start. And at $29, I think having something like this that is more than just a basic Bluetooth mouse, but then also is a companion because it will magnetically attach to pretty much any device of choice. Now, it's a case-by-case basis as to whether or not the case will physically impair the mating of the magnet, which is part of the reason that Ventaron has these magnetic pads as an option for all of us, so that in the event you don't use an iPad, which this will stick to everywhere. I don't have one, unfortunately. That's the nature of my content, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. Then you'll use one of these little guys if you're not, working with a device that will, again, natively allow you to use the magnetic connection. But both the Tab S8 Ultra, as well as the Chromebook Duet 3 and the Lenovo P12 Pro over there, I didn't have a problem. Now, you do have to find the sweet spot, and that's why I'm showing you this. Over here, a little bit of stickiness, but right over here is where it gets glued to this guy. So, no issue holding its own weight. This will travel with it wherever I want to take it, and I won't have a problem. This will stay on there, and that's exactly what you're looking for. So when you're ready to use the mouse, just make sure, again, that you're in mouse mode. Go ahead, pop it off, and start working. But as I mentioned, there are things that they could work on, and that is the strength of the magnets are so strong that sometimes when it's attached to a device, the battery plate can actually come off in the process. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, and the easy solution is rather than trying to pull the device off, you just slide it off. Now, I think this is something that likely will be addressed with the final product. That's just what I'm assuming, but even if it's not, again, it's a Kickstarter, it's a first generation, a working prototype you're seeing. This is an example on the P12 Pro where it is so tight, the magnet, that this is one of those that when you pull it off, as you can see, the battery door is going to come off with it. But if, like I mentioned before, you opt for sliding it off of the case, that rectifies the issue. But this just shows you with the P12 Pro, you're good. With the Chromebook Duet 3, you're good. With the Tab S8 Ultra, it will also stick. However, and this is just going over, again, being transparent about performance, because the mouse does what it's supposed to, but the magnetic connection, no fault of the mouse itself, isn't going to penetrate, at least for me, anywhere on the Samsung case. So you will have to remove it or not use it at all. I know many of you didn't even bother to purchase the keyboard cover case because it's just ridiculously overpriced. So if you're using a third-party case, you might have a better shot that right under the camera module, like on most tablets, there will be enough surface area for that magnet to get a connection like this, which is exactly what you want. I mean, this is the whole premise of being able to take the Magnito mouse wherever you want, and you're not going to lose it because it's going to stay with you. It's going to stay attached to your tablet. And of course, if you want to use this with a laptop, you can. Most Windows-based machines that I have for review don't really have the right material necessarily to, again, mate with this. So that's why I think Ventaron is being very specific about it being a mouse designed for tablets. And I think that's what the media playback functions speak to. That's what the presentation functions speak to, is that this is meant to be a portable tablet mouse that is going to allow you to take a tablet and be more productive, but also, in the same vein, just enjoy content consumption using it as a remote from a 30-foot distance, if that is what you're after. So, again, I can't really speak to battery life. I'm going to have to stick with manufacturer specs because as it stands right now, battery life hasn't been an issue. Again, roughly 1 month, and I have not seen any issue regarding battery. I haven't seen any handshake problems with the Bluetooth 5.0 on board with not only the devices you see here, these three, but also my Asus G15. So from a Bluetooth standpoint, it works well. Now, when we talk about ergonomics, which I think is the last thing, and sometimes I would argue that's the most important, it is really small. If you have very large hands, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to work with for long periods of time. But that's not the majority of the market. The majority of the market does not have gargantuan paws. So sorry, I'm not trying to knock anybody if you got huge hands, but this mouse in particular is fairly small because it is designed for travel. So with that in mind, being a little under a quarter of a pound, 99 grams, it's really compact, and that's just part of the game. Also, the flat surface where the magnet is, maybe in the future they figure out a way that the bottom of the device is where the magnetic connection is. But then again, it might be smarter that it's this way. Initially when I saw it, I thought, well, the optical sensor is exposed, the switch is exposed, the button's exposed. But quite frankly, there may not be a smart way, an intelligent way to make the bottom of this magnetic, and that may be the very obvious reason for why it's here on the front. But this battery door removal thing, that's, something's got to give when it comes to that. Also, the actual clicks on this, I think, were rated at some insane number. So from a standpoint of overall use, again, I can't speak to long-term use, again, 1 month, but Ventaron has assured me they're going to stand behind this product. After all, they're trying to really start a new trend. So I think it's cool. It's certainly not for everyone. Ergonomics, not its strong suit, but I didn't have any carpal tunnel-esque issues using this for like a solid day of work. So that's definitely positive. And again, if you're looking for a mouse that travels well, specifically magnetically, as its way of pairing to your device of choice, and then essentially also you may benefit from the ability to use this as a media playback device or, of course, a presentation device. I personally, not so much, I'm leaning towards presentation, but media playback, then I think it's cool. And I think you will get practical use out of it. I think it definitely favors iPad and Apple users. I mean, even the color scheme, design language seems like it was made for an Apple ecosystem, and there's nothing wrong with that. The good news is that you don't have to have an Apple product as usual, and that's why Ventaron gave us the magnetic pad with the adhesive, which I just put on the backwards. But the idea is really simple. Just peel that off, stick it to your device of choice. So as I've mentioned with the Tab S8 Ultra, where I cannot get a native magnetic connection, I could just, of course, stick this to any part of the tablet, and then in turn, of course, with the battery door off, just put the battery door right back on, and I'm in business. So it's really a matter of personal preference. I think a lot of you will get practical use out of this. I've included a link in the description for their Kickstarter. I think they made an interesting product, and because it's affordable and very portable, I think there are many of you that are going to enjoy using this as your new Bluetooth mouse travel companion. Specifically, again, for tablets that can support the magnetic connection. That's where you're going to get the most out of this. But that pretty much rounds it out. Cool little product from Ventaron. First time I've seen a product from them. Glad they sent it over for a review. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe, and please stay safe. Later.